Introduction. Friends, if you're someone who loves classic thrillers, epic filmmaking, and unforgettable cinematic experiences, then you absolutely have to watch the legendary film Jaws from 1975 in English. And if you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a dive into movie history like this one. In today's video, we're not just talking about any movie. We're talking about Jaws, the film that made millions of people scared to go into the water and practically invented the summer blockbuster. So stay with us because we're going to explore every corner of this iconic film. We'll talk about what this movie actually is, what made it such a landmark in cinema, and how it managed to terrify, entertain, and thrill audiences all around the world. If you're wondering where to watch it, we'll also tell you exactly where Jaws is available today, whether it's on popular OTT platforms for digital rental or on satellite channels. Whether you're watching it for the first time or revisiting it after years, we'll help you find the best way to enjoy this film in all its suspenseful glory. But that's not all. We're diving even deeper, just like the shark does in the film. We'll take a look at the technical side of Jaws, including the cinematography, the use of practical effects, and the infamous mechanical shark that gave the filmmakers so many headaches. We'll also talk about how Steven Spielberg, still very early in his career at the time, directed this film with such intensity and mastery that it launched him into superstardom. Music fans, get ready, because we'll also explore the legendary soundtrack by John Williams. Those haunting two notes became one of the most recognized musical cues in film history, and we'll see how this score played a major role in building the film's tension and fear. The music didn't just support the movie, it became part of the terror. We'll also break down the story for you, without giving away too many spoilers to those who haven't seen it yet. And I'll give you a short, fun review of the plot, the pacing, the atmosphere, and everything that makes Jaws such a gripping experience. And yes, we'll cover the entire cast, from Roy Scheider as Chief Brody, to Richard Dreyfuss as a quirky oceanographer Hooper, and Robert Shaw as the unforgettable shark hunter Quint. We'll tell you who played what role, how the performances added to the movie's impact, and why the chemistry between them works so well. We're also going to share tons of fun and surprising facts about the movie, from production delays, mechanical malfunctions, and improvisations on set, to how this film became a massive box office success and changed the way Hollywood releases movies forever. We'll even talk a little about the pre-production phase, post-production editing, and how the film's suspense was actually heightened because of problems behind the scenes. Sometimes, what goes wrong can make everything go right, from the budget to the box office numbers. We'll break it all down and show you just how huge this film was, not just in terms of earnings, but in terms of influence. Jaws wasn't just a movie. It became a cultural milestone, the blueprint for countless thrillers, and the reason why millions of people still hear that iconic theme every time they step into the ocean. So friends, I request you to stay tuned till the very end of the video, because we're going to take you on a deep and thrilling journey to the making, the magic, and the madness of Jaws. Get ready to relive the fear, the excitement, and the genius of one of the greatest movies ever made. Let's start the video. The story of Jaws unfolds with the clarity of a nightmare and the relentless momentum of a thrill ride, but it's all built on a very grounded and classical narrative structure. This isn't a film that experiments with time jumps or multiple points of view. It doesn't need to. It's linear, straightforward, and all the more effective because of it. But don't let the simplicity fool you. Within that clean structure, the tension coils tighter and tighter until it finally snaps in a third act that's part myth, part war movie, and part man versus nature survival story. The film opens in complete darkness, accompanied by the gentle slosh of waves and the curious notes of what will soon become one of the most recognizable soundtracks in movie history. We see a young woman running toward the water for a moonlit swim. There's laughter, flirtation, a sense of carefree innocence. But in the water, everything changes. She's attacked by something unseen. No big reveal, no monster in full view, just terror below the surface. Her body jerks violently. She screams, she disappears. And just like that, the audience is pulled into a state of dread. It's a bold choice to begin a movie with a death before we've even met the main characters. And it signals to the viewer that this isn't just a suspense film. This is about fear itself, creeping from the unknown. From there, we meet Martin Brody, the police chief of Amity Island. He's a New Yorker, recently relocated, and clearly not a home in this beach community. Brody is grounded, cautious, and decent, and he's got a healthy fear of the ocean. When the remains of the missing girl are discovered, Brody is quick to suspect a shark. He wants to shut down the beaches, but runs into the first wall of resistance: the town's business interests. The mayor, a symbol of small-town political cowardice, urges calm. He argues that closing the beaches would cause unnecessary panic and hurt the economy during the town's busiest season. Here lies the first real emotional conflict in the story. Brody, the man who wants to protect lives, is pressured into silence for the sake of money. And as viewers, we already know he's right. That's what gives the narrative such sharp teeth. The audience is always one step ahead, helplessly watching as disaster brews. The turning point comes with another attack. This time it happens in the daylight, on a crowded beach, with children in the water. A young boy is killed, and this moment breaks the town's illusion of safety. It also breaks Brody's patience. The shark can no longer be ignored. A bounty is put on its head, attracting a circus of amateur fishermen and opportunists who flood the harbor, each hoping to be the one who catches a monster. Among the chaos emerges Matt Hooper, a wealthy, educated marine biologist who represents logic, science, and a sense of urgency. Hooper quickly becomes Brody's ally and confirms that the town is still in danger, because the shark that was killed and proudly displayed by the locals isn't the right one. Enter Quint, the hardened shark hunter who strides into the movie like a character out of myth or folklore. He's gruff, eccentric, and seasoned by years of experience. He doesn't speak in numbers and theory. He speaks from blood, scars, and obsession. He offers to kill the shark for a hefty fee, and once the mayor finally realizes the threat is real, the town agrees. This is where the story tightens its focus. The chaos of the town disappears, and the narrative becomes almost theatrical. 3 men, 1 boat, 1 monster. The final act of Jaws plays out like a high-seas epic. The orca sets out into the deep blue, and the personalities on board clash almost immediately. Brody, the outsider afraid of the water, is a symbol of law and morality. Hooper is the intellect, bringing science and reason. Quint is the raw, primal force, deeply emotional and deeply haunted. They represent 3 very different approaches to dealing with fear and survival. And the shark? The shark is relentless, silent, and seemingly unstoppable. As the hunt intensifies, so do the failures. The shark is smarter than expected, stronger than they're prepared for, and more destructive than any of them imagined. There's no safe space, no backup plan, and no turning back. Tensions rise on the boat. Brody is pushed to his breaking point. Hooper's fancy technology falters. And Quint, the man who seems to know the ocean better than anyone, begins to crack. His chilling monologue about the USS Indianapolis adds a new depth of horror to the story. It's not just a tale of survival anymore. It's a tale of trauma and the price of obsession. Eventually, the hunt becomes a matter of who will break first, the shark or the men. The boat is nearly destroyed. Hooper is taken out of the action. Quint meets a brutal end. Brody, once terrified of the ocean, is now face to face with the very thing he feared. And with nothing but a rifle and an oxygen tank, he makes his stand. It's a moment of poetic justice. The land-loving lawman who was once helpless now outwits the beast. The shark explodes in a geyser of salt water and flame, and the ocean is still again. But it's not a triumphant victory with swelling music and applause. It's quiet, almost reflective. Brody and Hooper paddle back to shore, changed men, survivors of something ancient and unknowable. The genius of Jaws is in how it evolves without ever losing focus. It starts as a local mystery, becomes a psychological thriller, shifts into a manhunt, and ends as a war of wills. There's no need for gimmicks or narrative tricks. The story flows like the tide, slow and steady, then crashing down with full force. It plays on our deepest fears, builds characters we genuinely care about, and moves from land to sea, from society to isolation, from denial to confrontation. Each act has its own tempo, its own emotional palette, and its own form of danger. And when you step back, you realize you've been pulled into something far more primal than just a shark story. You've been pulled into a modern myth, told with perfect timing, rising stakes, and an unshakable sense of dread that lingers long after the final credits. The character development in Jaws isn't just a side feature. It's a hidden engine that keeps the entire film running. You may come for the shark, but what makes the story unforgettable, what gives it real depth and resonance, are the human beings standing at the edge of that ocean. This isn't just a story of man versus nature. It's man versus fear versus pride versus trauma versus himself. And those conflicts are reflected through three of the most distinct, richly drawn, and perfectly cast characters in thriller history. Let's start with Martin Brody. On paper, he's just a police chief. But what Spielberg and Roy Scheider do with him is something special. Brody is an outsider, geographically, emotionally, even socially. He's a former NYPD officer who's moved to a quiet island to escape the chaos of city life and raise a family in peace. But that so-called peace is shattered almost immediately by something primal and ancient. Brody is terrified of the water. This is one of his first defining traits, and it's so important because he's the one being forced to face the very thing he most fears. At the start of the film, Brody is hesitant, uncertain, and easily overruled by the town's leaders. He wants to close the beaches after the first attack, but the mayor and business owners pressure him to keep quiet. He's stuck between doing what's right and following what's easy. That inner conflict drives his early arc. He feels responsible, and that guilt builds with every victim. But as the film progresses, Brody begins to change. He starts taking action. He stands up to the mayor. He joins the hunt. And in the film's final act, he's transformed, not with bravado, not with superhuman strength, but by facing his fear head-on. He ends the film bloodied, exhausted, floating in the water he once feared, but finally in control. It's not a flashy arc. It's a quiet, personal journey of courage and responsibility. Now enter Matt Hooper, the young, educated marine biologist with a dry sense of humor, and the kind of enthusiasm that's both charming and slightly arrogant. Hooper isn't just comic relief. He brings the film's scientific backbone. Where Brody represents law and logic, Hooper represents curiosity and reason. He's used to thinking with his brain, not his fists. And when he first arrives on Amity Island, he's clearly out of place, rich, sophisticated, armed with sonar and shark cages. But he quickly proves he's not just some desk scientist. He volunteers to cut open a shark. He goes diving in murky waters. He stares death in the face more than once. Hooper's development is more subtle than Brody's. He doesn't change as much as he reveals who he really is. Beneath the jokes and gadgets, he's a fighter, and his chemistry with Brody grows throughout the film. They go from strangers to true allies. Hooper doesn't just support Brody. He brings out a part of him that's braver, sharper, more focused. Their friendship feels organic, built not on shared interests, but shared danger. Then there's Quint. Oh, Quint. He's not just a shark hunter. He's a walking ghost story. He doesn't arrive in the film quietly. He literally scratches his way into the scene with a fingernail on a chalkboard. From the moment he speaks, you know he's lived through things the others couldn't imagine. He's a relic of another world, rough, foul-mouthed, superstitious, and deeply damaged. His motivations aren't financial. They're personal. He hunts sharks not just because it's his job, but because it's his obsession. And when he delivers that bone-chilling monologue about surviving the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, everything clicks. This man watched his friends get eaten alive. He drifted in the sea for days, waiting to die. The shark is not just an animal to him. It's a symbol of everything he couldn't save, everything he still fears. His macho bluster is a mask for deep psychological scars. Quint's downfall is also his tragedy. He refuses Hooper's help, mocks his equipment, pushes his boat too hard. He's brilliant, brave, and broken. And ultimately, it's his refusal to adapt that seals his fate. But even in death, his role is meaningful. Quint represents what happens when fear consumes you. What's so fascinating is how these three characters operate as a triangle, each one mirroring and challenging the others. Brody is a grounded realist, Hooper is the rational thinker, and Quint is the emotional wild card. None of them could have stopped the shark alone. Together, they represent a full spectrum of human response to terror, denial, curiosity, obsession, and ultimately, bravery. Their dynamic on the boat isn't just entertaining. It's layered with friction, growth, and surprising moments of tenderness. There's that unforgettable scene where they compare scars, laughing, teasing, sharing, and then Quint slips into his monologue. The laughter dies. The room chills. And you realize these are real men, not movie stereotypes. They're bound by fear, but also by a sense of duty, survival, and strange, unlikely respect. Even supporting characters have shape. Mayor Vaughn, for example, isn't just a bureaucratic villain. He's a man overwhelmed, terrified of economic collapse, and blind to the consequences. He's stubborn and short-sighted, yes, but you see the cracks in him when he realizes his mistake. By the time his own children are on the beach during an attack, his pride shatters. It's a small arc, but an important one, reminding us that fear affects everyone differently. Brody's wife, Ellen, though not central to the action, also adds warmth and reality. Their marriage feels genuine. She worries about him. She tries to make sense of his anxieties. Their relationship isn't a big subplot, but it roots Brody emotionally. It gives him something to protect. When he fights the shark, he's not just trying to survive. He's trying to get home to her. What makes Jaws so rich isn't just the fear of the unknown, but the clarity of the known. These characters aren't caricatures. They're us. They argue, they panic. They joke, they break. They're afraid, but they fight anyway. And by the end of the film, they've changed. Whether it's through sacrifice, confrontation, or quiet resolve, they've crossed the line from safety into danger and come out transformed. The shark is terrifying, yes, but it's the human struggle beneath the surface that stays with you. The fear is real, but so is the courage. The performances in Jaws are so compelling, so authentically lived in, that they transcend the label of acting. What you're watching doesn't feel like a group of people reciting lines on a movie set. It feels like a real town in crisis, a real ocean expedition, and real human beings grappling with dread, ego, fear, and duty. That's the magic Spielberg captured. Not just spectacle, not just suspense, but character-driven storytelling power by performers who understood how to ground even the most unbelievable premise in absolute emotional truth. There's no single main performance that carries the weight alone. Each actor contributes a distinct emotional texture, and when they collide, it's like watching chemistry react in real time. What's extraordinary is how these actors work within such a restrained and realistic tone. Yet their characters are unforgettable and iconic. Start with Roy Scheider, who gives a performance that anchors the entire film. He's not showy, he's not trying to dominate the screen, but he is the emotional center. Scheider plays Chief Martin Brody as a man constantly simmering with anxiety. Not the exaggerated panic of a melodramatic hero, but the quiet, tight-jawed dread of someone who knows something is very wrong, but can't quite get anyone to listen. There's tension in his shoulders, in his glances, in the pauses between words. He's carrying the pressure of an entire town's safety on his back, and you can see it in every scene. He's also wonderfully human. He fumbles, hesitates, second-guesses. But by the end of the film, Scheider lets that slow-burning fear transform into focus. In the final confrontation, when Brody is clinging to a sinking mast and facing off against a shark, his victory isn't just physical, it's psychological. Scheider never turns Brody into a superhero. He lets him stay human, and that makes his bravery all the more believable. Then comes Richard Dreyfuss, who is magnetic as Matt Hooper. He walks a fine line between brilliant and bratty, and he makes Hooper incredibly fun to watch. Dreyfuss infuses a character with a youthful energy that lifts the film whenever he's on screen. Hooper arrives as a bit of a know-it-all, zipping around with his wealth and his gadgets, and Dreyfuss plays up the arrogance just enough to make it endearing. But what makes his performance so rich is how he layers Hooper with sincerity, compassion, and integrity. He's not just a fast-talking scientist. He cares deeply. When he examines the remains of the first victim, his demeanor shifts from cocky to devastated. When he challenges the mayor or risks his life diving under the boat, we see that beneath the wit is a man with real courage. Dreyfuss also has remarkable chemistry with both Shaw and Scheider. His banter with Quint is prickly and combative. Two men from different worlds with different philosophies, but the tension is electric, and his camaraderie with Brody is warm and evolving. By the time they're paddling to shore together at the end, you feel like they've truly earned each other's trust. And now, the unforgettable presence of Robert Shaw as Quint. This is the kind of performance that carves itself into cinematic history. From the moment Quint makes his dramatic entrance, scraping a chalkboard to silence a room, you know he's a force to be reckoned with. Shaw plays him as a man with salt water in his veins and a past that clings to every word he growls. He's funny, frightening, charismatic, and tragic all at once. It's a performance steeped in texture. The way he sizes up Hooper with disdain, the way he toys with Brody's fear, the way he controls the energy on the boat, it's pure storytelling through performance. But the heart of Quint, the moment where Shaw absolutely stuns, is the now legendary monologue about the USS Indianapolis. It's quiet, deliberate, and haunting. You see the trauma etched into his face. You feel the weight of history pressing down on him. It's not just a speech, it's an emotional excavation. And Shaw delivers it with the kind of gravitas that makes you forget you're watching a film at all. Quint becomes real in that moment. No longer just a larger-than-life hunter, but a man marked by death. That speech alone elevated Shaw's performance from great to immortal. But it's not just the leads who shine. The supporting cast in Jaws is filled with sharp, believable performances that round out the world of Amity Island. Murray Hamilton as Mayor Larry Vaughn gives one of the most underrated performances in the film. He's not a mustache-twirling villain. Hamilton plays him as someone desperate to preserve an image, to protect the town's economy, and to avoid panic. There's a nervous charm to him, a smoothness in how he deflects Brody's concerns. But when reality hits, when he's confronted with the true horror of what he's allowed to happen, you can see the guilt swallow him whole. His voice trembles. His eyes go distant. It's subtle but devastating. He's a man who knows he gambled with lives and lost. Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody also deserves recognition. She may not be out hunting the shark, but her performance adds emotional gravity and warmth to Brody's story. Gary doesn't overplay Ellen. She gives her just the right amount of strength and humor. Her scenes with Scheider feel intimate and authentic, particularly the quiet domestic moments. The beach conversations, the worried glances when Brody stares at the ocean, the gentle support when he's overwhelmed. Her presence keeps the film rooted in something personal. She reminds us of what's at stake beyond statistics and shark attacks. This is a man with family, with love, with a reason to survive. And then there's the sea of character actors and local extras, many of whom Spielberg cast from the island community, where the film was shot. They aren't polished or theatrical, but that's exactly the point. They feel real. The fishermen with tall tales, the woman whose son was killed, the gruff boatmen shouting over each other at the docks. Every small role adds authenticity. You don't feel like you're watching a movie town. You feel like you've been dropped into a real place filled with real people trying to keep life moving while death circles beneath the waves. Together, this ensemble creates a kind of emotional ecosystem. The actors don't just read lines. They react, challenge, comfort, provoke. The friction between them is alive. The friendships that form feel earned. The fear that grows feels shared. Even when the shark isn't on screen, the performances keep you riveted. You're watching people who feel as if they could walk off the screen and into your life, and that's what makes Jaws endure. The shark may be the hook, but the performances are the anchor. They give the film its heart, its edge, and its timeless power. What Spielberg pulls off in Jaws is more than just skillful direction. It's a full orchestration of suspense, human psychology, visual storytelling, and audience manipulation, all rolled into one fluid experience that doesn't let up. His control over every element, pacing, mood, sound, space, character dynamics, is what transforms a simple creature feature into an unforgettable cinematic experience. And what's wild is that he managed all this under constant pressure. The production was famously plagued by disasters, mechanical sharks that rarely worked, budget blowouts, schedule overruns. Yet somehow, all of that stress and chaos didn't just get hidden. It actually became part of the film's identity. The anxiety you feel watching Jaws is, in some strange way, connected to the very real pressure brewing behind the scenes. Let's talk about how Spielberg frames fear. He doesn't rely on gore or jump scares. He crafts tension through timing and denial. He shows restraint that's rare, especially for the time. That shark? You barely see it for most of the film. Not because Spielberg didn't want to show it, but because the prop rarely worked. But instead of forcing the issue, he adapted, and in doing so, changed how horror works. He made fear something you imagine, something that creeps into the corners of your vision. That's why even now, decades later, people are still scared to swim in the ocean after watching this movie. It's not about what they saw. It's about what they felt. That's Spielberg, bending fear into shape without even showing you the monster. And he never lets go of the human scale of the story. The shark may be enormous, but Spielberg never lets the spectacle devour the characters. Even when a film becomes a sea-bound action-adventure in the third act, it remains grounded in personality clashes, backstory tensions, and psychological nuance. He stages some of the most intense scenes, like Hooper's dive into the submerged boat wreck. Not for cheap thrills, but to put us inside the characters' minds. We're not watching them, we are them. That's direction at its most immersive. Spielberg uses every trick in the book, camera angles, lighting, silence, framing, rhythm, to subtly guide us into their panic. The orca sequences in the second half of the film are an especially rich playground for Spielberg's style. Out on the open water, there's nowhere to hide. He uses tight framing to create a sense of claustrophobia, but he also opens things up when the danger strikes, letting the ocean feel vast and empty, and the shifts are seamless. When the three men are bonding over drinks, it feels oddly cozy. When the shark reappears, the whole frame expands with threat. Spielberg orchestrates those moments like a conductor, moving between quiet and chaos with absolute precision. Take the Indianapolis speech scene. The camera barely moves. It doesn't need to. The performances do the heavy lifting, and Spielberg gives them the space to breathe. He trusts the silence. He lets the discomfort grow, lets the haunted look in Quint's eyes linger. That's not flashy direction. It's patient, mature, deeply intuitive direction. It's about knowing when not to direct, when to let a moment stand on its own. Then, just a few beats later, the shark attacks again, and suddenly we're in full survival mode. That kind of gear shift could feel jarring in lesser hands, but Spielberg makes it feel seamless. It's part of the film's rhythm: build, release, build, explode. Even something as basic as cutting is used brilliantly. Spielberg's editing rhythm, especially in the beach scenes, is like a heartbeat. Slow and steady at first, then quicker, then panicked. He'll cut between swimmers, shadows in the water, Brody scanning the surf, back to a swimmer, then an underwater shot, and your stomach starts to tighten. Not because anything happens, but because something might. And when it finally does, it lands like a gut punch. He milks every second leading up to the attacks. He stretches attention to the breaking point and lets it snap. His use of point-of-view shots is also masterful. He puts you in the shark's eyes. He puts you in the swimmer's place. He puts you on the beach, watching helplessly. And each time, your relationship to the threat changes. Sometimes you're the predator. Sometimes you're the prey. Sometimes you're the powerless observer. That fluid point of view makes the film feel interactive. It draws you in, plays with your comfort level, and keeps shifting the rules. Spielberg also uses space brilliantly. On land, the threat feels distant. There's the illusion of control. But at sea, there's no safe zone, no background noise, no distractions. Just three men and a vast body of water. He uses that isolation to turn the third act into a pressure cooker. The ocean is endless. The boat is shrinking, and the shark is always out there, just beneath the surface. Spielberg turns the setting into a stage for psychological disintegration and heroism all at once. And then there's his vision as a storyteller. He's not just interested in thrills. He's interested in what fear does to people. That's why the characters matter. That's why Brody's fear of water isn't a throwaway trait. It becomes a story. That's why Quint's obsession feels tragic, not just eccentric. That's why Hooper's science versus instinct worldview plays such a key role in their dynamic. Spielberg weaves those elements into narrative without ever stopping the film to explain them. You feel them in the way the characters look at each other, in the way they argue, in the silences between lines. What really makes Spielberg's direction so impactful is that it never feels like it's drawing attention to itself. There are no sweeping crane shots to show off. No elaborate camera tricks, just for style. It's all in service of the story. It's invisible, which is why it's so effective. You're not thinking about the direction. You're living inside it. This was only a second theatrical feature, but Jaws plays like the work of a seasoned master. It launched not just a career, but the modern blockbuster itself. And it did so because Spielberg's direction wasn't just about scaring people. It was about making them care while they were scared. He took a story about a shark and made it about fear, pride, obsession, duty, and survival. That's what direction is supposed to do. Not just tell the story, but elevate it into something unforgettable. Spielberg didn't just make a great thriller. He made a great film. And he did it one heartbeat, one wave, one gasp at a time. The cinematography in Jaws is nothing short of cinematic wizardry, a vital ingredient that transforms what could have been a straightforward thriller into an immersive and unforgettable experience. Bill Butler's work behind the camera goes beyond mere documentation. He shapes how we feel every moment, how we perceive the vastness of the ocean, and how terror slowly creeps into even the sunniest, most idyllic settings. His choices in camera angles, lighting, and framing don't just capture the action. They actively create the mood, the suspense, and emotional texture that define the film. One of the most powerful techniques Butler uses is placing the camera in the shark's point of view. These underwater shots are famously murky, almost grainy, with shifting light, and dark shapes moving just out of clear focus. The ocean becomes a mysterious and threatening realm, a vast and unknowable world beneath the surface that feels alive and watching. These shots aren't flashy or overly stylized. They're raw and intimate, as if the camera itself is stalking prey. This perspective is incredibly effective at unsettling the audience. It invites you to experience the ocean not as a safe, familiar place, but as a dangerous hunting ground where unseen forces rule. The suspense generated here is visceral. You don't just anticipate the attack. You feel the shark's predatory presence all around you. Butler contrasts these dark, claustrophobic underwater views with the bright, sunlit expanses of Amity Island's beaches. The cinematography in these scenes has a deceptively carefree feel. The water glitters in the sunlight. Kids splash and laugh. Families relax on the sand. The camera captures wide, open shots that convey freedom and safety. But this brightness is deliberately deceptive. It lulls you into a false sense of security, making the shark's attacks all the more shocking. The cheerful color palette, combined with serene compositions, plays against the horror that lurks beneath. It's a brilliant visual trick that amplifies the fear. The ocean looks inviting, but we know it's deadly. A standout moment of visual storytelling comes early in the film with the legendary dolly zoom shot on Chief Brody. As he witnesses the first shark attack from the shore, the background seems to warp and stretch while Brody's face remains steady and focused. This jarring effect perfectly captures the disorienting rush of terror and disbelief Brody feels as the attack unfolds. The shot has become iconic because it doesn't just show fear. It makes you experience fear on a neurological level. It's a masterstroke of cinematography serving narrative and emotion in perfect harmony. Spatial awareness and framing are crucial throughout Jaws, especially once the action moves out to sea. The boat, the Orca, is a confined, precarious stage surrounded by the endless, unpredictable ocean. Butler uses tight shots of the three men huddled together to emphasize their vulnerability and isolation. Their cramped quarters contrast sharply with the vastness around them, making the sea seem infinite and merciless. The framing often leaves empty space beside or behind the characters, suggesting the unseen threat lurking just out of view. This deliberate composition builds tension, as the audience is constantly aware of what might emerge from that empty space. Lighting in the film is another key element that Butler wields with precision. The naturalistic daylight scenes lend the story a documentary-like realism, grounding the story in a believable world. The warm, sunlit beaches feel authentic and lived in, making the danger feel all the more intrusive and unnatural. Night scenes, on the other hand, are drenched in shadows and punctuated by harsh artificial light from the boat or flashlights. This stark contrast heightens a mystery and danger, enveloping the characters in darkness both literal and metaphorical. The flickering lights cast eerie patterns on the water's surface, reflecting the characters' fear and uncertainty. Butler also excels at balancing wide, sweeping shots with intimate close-ups, using each to serve a distinct narrative purpose. The wide shots capture the enormity of the ocean and the helplessness of the men within it, reminding us just how small and fragile they are in the face of nature's power. Conversely, close-ups reveal every flicker of emotion. Brody's tightening jaw, Quint's grim determination, Hooper's cautious calculations. This constant shift between scale and detail keeps the audience emotionally engaged, connecting us to both the vastness of the threat and the personal stakes for each character. The color palette in Jaws subtly reinforces the film's themes. The natural blues and greens of the ocean suggest beauty and tranquility, but these same colors become cold and menacing under Butler's lens. The warm earth tones of the beach and town ground the story in reality, making the setting feel like a place viewers could actually visit, where danger suddenly crashes into normal life. There's a visual tension in this contrast that mirrors the film's emotional tension, the peace of everyday life shattered by an unstoppable force. When the shark does finally appear more fully on screen, Butler's cinematography keeps the reveal impactful by avoiding overexposure or gratuitous display. Shots of the shark are often partial. Just a fin slicing to the water, a sudden splash, a glimpse of massive teeth. This restraint heightens anticipation and maintains the shark's mystique as a lurking terror. Each appearance is timed and framed to maximize shock and dread, making the creature feel more like an elemental force than a simple monster. Butler's camera work also works hand in hand with John Williams' legendary score to create a rhythm of suspense and release. The camera lingers just long enough to build unease, then cuts sharply when the music cues the attack. This synchronization amplifies every scare, pulling the viewer deeper into the experience. Even the film's quieter, character-driven moments benefit from Butler's sensitive eye. Scenes on the beach with families, the conversations on the boat, and Brody's domestic moments at home all feel warm and real, thanks to careful framing and natural light. These moments provide contrast of terror and remind us who the shark is threatening, not just bodies in the water, but entire lives and relationships. In summary, the cinematography in Jaws is an indispensable storytelling tool that does far more than just show the action. Bill Butler's camera angles, lighting choices, and framing work in tandem to create a living, breathing world that's at once beautiful, menacing, and intensely human. His work turns ordinary settings into stages of suspense, transforms simple water shots into visual nightmares, and makes the ocean itself a character full of mystery and menace. The film's visual language speaks directly to the audience's senses and emotions, keeping them on edge, invested, and utterly captivated from start to finish. The editing and pacing of Jaws are absolute cornerstones of its success, brilliantly shaping how the film controls our attention and emotions from start to finish. Verna Fields, the film's editor, crafts an almost hypnotic rhythm that flows like the ocean itself, sometimes calm and serene, other times crashing and chaotic. And this ebb and flow is what keeps us glued to the screen without ever feeling overwhelmed or bored. The way Jaws moves from quiet, everyday moments into full-blown terror is so seamless that it feels like a natural progression rather than a forced roller coaster ride. Fields' editing is a subtle art, using timing and transitions to build tension gradually and then release it at just the right moments. One of the standout strengths of the editing is how it balances the movie's pacing between scenes of calm and sudden bursts of violence. At the start, we're treated to leisurely shots of Amity Island, the sunny beach, kids splashing in the waves, families enjoying summer days. These scenes almost lull the audience into a false sense of security. The cuts here are measured, letting us soak in the environment and connect with the characters, building empathy and investment. There's no rush. This patience is crucial because it sets up the horror to come, making the shark attacks hit with much more force. When that first attack happens, the editing shifts gears sharply. Suddenly, the pace picks up, shots become quicker, cuts sharper, and the tension skyrockets. The contrast between the slow build and the frantic chaos makes the scares far more impactful. What's brilliant is how Fields uses editing to layer perspectives during key moments, especially the shark attacks. The editing cuts between multiple points of view, the terrified swimmer struggling underwater, Brody's desperate watch from the shore, the ominous underwater shots suggesting the shark's approach. This intercutting creates a multi-dimensional sense of dread. You're not just witnessing an event from one angle. You're experiencing the chaos from all sides simultaneously. This technique heightens emotional impact, immersing the audience fully in the moment and making the danger feel immediate and inescapable. The middle portion of the film, where the trio sets out on the orca to hunt the shark, showcases the editor's skill at sustaining tension over a longer period. Here, the pacing is like a slow-burning fuse. Fields lets moments breathe, allowing characters to argue, joke, and interact, while also interspersing quick, jarring cuts of the shark's shadow moving beneath the boat or sudden splashes in the water. This mix of slow and fast edits mirrors the unpredictable nature of the hunt. Long waits filled with anxiety, punctuated by sudden terror. The editing maintains an almost hypnotic rhythm that draws you deeper into the story and the psychological states of the men aboard the boat. Another key aspect of the editing is its relationship with sound and music. The cuts are frequently timed to align with John Williams' iconic score, the simple, ominous two-note motif that has become synonymous with lurking danger. The editor uses the music as a guide, letting the tension swell in tandem with the cuts, and then breaking the rhythm with moments of silence or sudden visual shocks. These juxtapositions of sound and editing create an immersive experience that manipulates the audience's nerves expertly. For example, during the underwater sequences, the absence of sound combined with slow, deliberate cuts creates a suffocating atmosphere of anticipation that is almost unbearable. Quiet, character-driven scenes also benefit from field-sensitive pacing. The editing never rushes these moments. Instead, it lets the character's emotions unfold naturally. Conversations between Brody and his wife, the growing camaraderie and tension among Brody, Hooper, and Quint, and scenes showing the townspeople go about their daily lives are given room to develop. These scenes ground the film emotionally, making the audience care about the people at risk and thus making the threat of the shark more meaningful. The editing respects the story's emotional beats, which enhances the narrative's depth and complexity. As the film races towards climax, the editing tightens. The cuts become quicker, the scenes more focused, and the pace accelerates, creating a palpable sense of urgency. The rhythm sharpens as the characters face their final battle with the shark, and the editing contributes to the claustrophobic tension of the boat trapped in the vast ocean. The audience feels the character's desperation as the pacing crescendos into the explosive showdown. Every glance, splash, and movement becomes charged with meaning because the editing pulls us so tightly into the moment. Transitions between scenes throughout the film are also smooth and purposeful, moving from the calm, sunny beaches to the ominous water, and then to the cramped boat feels natural and effortless. These seamless transitions keep the narrative coherent and maintain the flow of tension without jarring the audience out of the story. The editing subtly guides us through the changing environments and emotional states, enhancing immersion. Verna Field's work on Jaws is a brilliant example of how editing shapes not just the structure of a film, but its emotional core and suspense. The pacing mimics the psychological journey of the characters and the relentless threat of the shark, pulling the audience into a world where fear builds slowly, then crashes like a tidal wave. The film's rhythm rises and falls like the ocean's tides, drawing viewers deeper into terror, and then giving brief respites before plunging back into chaos. It's a masterful balance that keeps Jaws gripping and thrilling from its first scene to its unforgettable finale. Without this carefully crafted flow, the film wouldn't hold the same power. It's editing that transforms the story into a tense, immersive experience that stays with audiences long after the credits roll. The soundtrack and score Jaws, composed by John Williams, stand as one of the most iconic achievements in film music history, playing a pivotal role in shaping the film's atmosphere and emotional impact. Unlike many scores that might rely on grand, sweeping orchestral themes or complex melodies, Williams opted for something brilliantly simple and chilling, a two-note motif that repeats and grows in intensity. This minimalism is precisely what makes it so powerful. Those two notes act almost like a primal warning signal that something unseen, relentless, and dangerous is approaching. It's music distilled to its purest form, evoking fear with the bare minimum, which shows Williams' incredible understanding of how sound can manipulate human emotions. From the very beginning, the score creates an immersive tension that pulls the audience in. The two-note motif mimics a heartbeat, slow and steady at first, then speeding up and growing louder as the shark closes in. This musical rhythm works hand in hand with the film's editing and pacing, forming an invisible thread that ties the story's suspenseful moments together. It conditions viewers to anticipate the shark's presence even before the creature is revealed visually, building psychological tension that feels almost unbearable. When those notes play, you feel the ocean grow darker, the air thicken, and the sense of danger become palpable. It's an ingenious use of repetition that turns a simple melody into a symbol of terror itself. What's equally masterful is how Williams balances this ominous theme with silence and more delicate sounds. In many scenes, the score pulls back completely, letting the natural sound of the environment, waves crashing, seagulls calling, creaking boats, take the foreground. This absence of music isn't empty. Instead, it creates a haunting quiet that makes every small noise more meaningful. The contrast between silence and music is a key part of the soundtrack's power, using what's not heard to build suspense just as much as what is. When the iconic two-note theme finally kicks in after a period of silence, it hits with twice the force. This ebb and flow of sound mirrors the ocean's own rhythm, reinforcing the film's immersive atmosphere. Beyond the menacing shark motif, Williams weaves in other musical cues that enhance the film's emotional texture. For lighter, everyday moments on Amity Island, scenes of families enjoying summer, or characters sharing quieter conversations, the music shifts to gentle, almost playful melodies. These passages add warmth and humanity to the story, grounding it in a relatable reality. They remind us what's at stake when the terror strikes, the lives, joys, and routines of ordinary people. This contrast between the friendly and the frightening deepens the emotional resonance of the film, making the threat feel personal and real. Williams' orchestration is also worth noting for its clever mimicry of the shark's presence. The low, rumbling strings and percussion evoke the deep, powerful movement of the great white beneath the waves. The music swells and contracts, mirroring the shark's stalking behavior. Patient lurking, then sudden and violent. When the brass instruments surge, the score injects adrenaline into the action scenes, heightening the sense of danger and urgency. This dynamic range prevents the music from becoming monotonous, keeping the audience's nerves constantly engaged. One of the soundtrack's most impressive feats is how it anticipates and manipulates audience reactions. The score acts like a storytelling device on its own, signaling danger long before it appears on screen. This musical foreshadowing creates an atmosphere thick with tension and dread, making viewers hyper-aware of every splash or shadow. The music teaches us to listen for danger, heightening our senses and deepening our immersion. It's a psychological game that Williams plays expertly, turning sound into a predator stalking alongside the shark. The interplay between Williams' music and the film's sound design is another layer of brilliance. Natural sounds, the ocean's roar, the creak of the orca, the distant cries of birds, are woven into soundscape alongside the score, creating an immersive audio environment. This blend grounds the film in reality, while also enhancing its mythic qualities. The music and sound effects blur together at times, making it difficult to distinguish where nature ends and menace begins, which adds to the film's unsettling atmosphere. Even during the film's quieter, more intimate scenes, the score maintains an emotional undercurrent. Subtle musical hints underscore the characters' fears, hopes, and determination without overpowering the dialogue or visuals. This restraint in scoring shows Williams' sensitivity to storytelling needs, allowing the music to support rather than dominate the narrative. The result is a soundtrack that enhances character development and emotional depth as much as it fuels suspense. The soundtrack's cultural impact cannot be overstated. The Jaws theme has transcended its original context to become a universal shorthand for lurking danger. It's instantly recognizable, often parodied or referenced in other media, but no imitation captures the original's subtle power. That two-note motif has entered the collective consciousness as the sound of suspense itself, a testament to Williams' genius in crafting a theme that's as simple as it is effective. In the grand scheme, the Jaws soundtrack exemplifies how music can elevate a film from thrilling entertainment to a gripping, immersive experience. It's a perfect marriage of simplicity and sophistication, tension and release, silence and sound. John Williams created more than just a score. He created an auditory character that stalks the film alongside the shark, shaping the audience's emotional journey in profound ways. Without this haunting, masterful music, Jaws would lose much of its terrifying magic. Instead, the soundtrack ensures that the fear beneath the waves resonates long after the screen goes dark, echoing in the mind of viewers as one of cinema's most unforgettable sonic experiences. Jaws dives far deeper than just the thrills of a shark attack story, surfacing a wealth of rich themes and messages that ripple throughout the film, giving an enduring impact beyond its immediate suspense. The most prominent theme swirling beneath the surface is humanity's fraught relationship with nature, how we perceive, confront, and sometimes fail to respect the wild forces around us. The great white shark isn't merely a predator. It represents the unpredictable and untamable power of the natural world, a force that refuses to be controlled or fully understood. The tension between humans and nature plays out vividly through the townsfolk's attempts to maintain their idyllic summer life despite the lurking threat beneath the waves. The film captures the complex psychology of fear, showing how it operates on individual and societal levels. Fear is the invisible current pulling everyone's actions and decisions, from Chief Brody's protective vigilance to the town's denial and economic prioritization of tourism. This fear fractures a community, pitting safety against profit, caution against recklessness. The town leader's reluctance to close the beaches reveals a darker side of human nature, how greed and denial can override common sense, especially when money is on the line. It's a biting commentary on the compromises societies often make, where short-term gain blinds people to long-term danger. This clash between public safety and economic interests remains remarkably relevant, making Jaws a story not just about sharks, but about human nature itself. The characters serve as vessels for exploring different responses to fear and the unknown. Chief Brody embodies the cautious, everyday hero who is thrust into a role he never sought, but rises to the challenge through determination and grit. His arc is one of personal growth, as he learns to confront not only the physical threat of the shark, but the bureaucratic and social obstacles standing in his way. Quint, with his grizzled demeanor and sea-hardened wisdom, represents a more fatalistic acceptance of nature's brutality. His relationship with the shark is almost mythic, a battle between two ancient forces. Hooper's scientific perspective introduces the modern, rational approach to danger, highlighting how knowledge and technology both empower and fall short against nature's mysteries. Together, these characters personify the spectrum of human reactions to crisis: fear, courage, denial, and understanding. Another resonant theme is the inherent unpredictability and indifference of nature. The shark moves through the ocean with brutal efficiency, utterly indifferent to human life or morality. This forces the film's characters and viewers to confront uncomfortable truths, that nature is not a tame resource but a powerful force operating on its own terms. The vastness of the ocean becomes a metaphor for the unknown and uncontrollable aspects of existence. The film doesn't romanticize nature as beautiful and benign, but presents it as awe-inspiring and terrifying in equal measure. This unflinching portrayal challenges the anthropocentric view that humans can dominate or fully understand the natural world. Survival instinct is another core theme, playing out through the escalating conflict between man and beast. Jaws taps into primal fears that transcend time and culture, the fear of being hunted, the sudden violence lurking beneath calm surfaces. This universal tension is what makes the film so gripping. Watching ordinary people face an extraordinary threat shines a light on what it means to be human when everything familiar is stripped away. Courage emerges not as a heroic ideal, but as a raw, sometimes reluctant response to danger. The character's survival struggle is as psychological as it is physical, showing how fear, resolve, and teamwork intertwine in moments of crisis. Leadership and responsibility emerge as powerful themes through Brody's journey. Unlike traditional action heroes, Brody isn't a larger-than-life figure. He's relatable and vulnerable, which makes his evolution all the more compelling. His role forces him to stand firm against skepticism, pressure, and his own fears. The film suggests that true leadership is messy and difficult, requiring persistence, sacrifice, and a willingness to face unpopular truths. Brody's struggles resonate because they reflect real human challenges beyond the shark hunt: negotiating authority, protecting community, and making hard decisions when stakes are high. The tension between science and superstition is vividly played out in the dynamic between Hooper and Quint. Hooper's modern, methodical approach contrasts with Quint's rugged, folklore-laden worldview. This clash symbolizes humanity's ongoing attempt to reconcile technological progress with ancient fears and traditions. It adds richness to the narrative by showing that understanding nature requires more than just data. It involves respect, experience, and sometimes humility. This thematic layer underscores the limitations of human knowledge when facing nature's vast mysteries. On a broader level, Jaws explores a fragile boundary between civilization and chaos. Amity Island, with its tidy homes, bustling boardwalk, and friendly faces, represents order and normalcy. The shark's intrusion disrupts this balance, forcing residents out of their comfort zones and into a confrontation with chaos and mortality. This theme touches on deep existential fears, the idea that beneath everyday life lies unpredictability and danger waiting to surface. It's a reminder of humanity's vulnerability and the thin veneer separating safety from disaster. This undercurrent of impending chaos adds a haunting psychological dimension to the story. Jaws also subtly comments on community and human connection. As the shark's attacks escalate, the town's unity is tested. Fear isolates some, while others band together. The story suggests that crises reveal true character and the importance of cooperation in facing overwhelming threats. This emphasis on social dynamics enriches the narrative, showing that survival depends not only on physical courage, but on relationships and trust. The film's themes don't feel preachy or forced. Rather, they flow naturally from the story and characters. The shark is never just a monster. It's a symbol, a catalyst that exposes human flaws, fears, and strengths. These thought-provoking ideas resonate because they're grounded in authentic human experience and emotion. The film invites viewers to reflect on their own relationship with nature, fear, and community, making a layered experience beyond simple entertainment. In essence, Jaws uses its thrilling shark story as a vessel to explore timeless themes of fear, survival, power, and humanity's place in the natural world. Its messages linger like the ocean's depths, sometimes calm and beautiful, other times dark and unknowable, offering viewers not only suspense but substance. This rich thematic tapestry is a big part of why the film remains relevant and impactful decades after it first made waves in cinema. When diving deeper into visual effects of Jaws, it's important to appreciate the remarkable ingenuity and creativity that went into crafting the shark's presence on screen, especially given the film's 1975 production date, long before the era of CGI and digital effects. Back then, filmmakers had to rely on practical effects, physical models, and clever cinematic techniques to bring monsters to life, and Jaws is a shining example of how limitations can spark innovation rather than hinder it. The star of this visual effects story is a mechanical shark, affectionately nicknamed Bruce by the crew. Bruce was an enormous, elaborate animatronic machine designed to mimic the power and menace of a real great white shark, and was one of the largest mechanical creatures ever built at the time for a film. However, Bruce was famously temperamental, breaking down frequently and refusing to work on schedule, which created massive challenges during filming. These malfunctions forced Steven Spielberg and his team to adapt their approach dramatically. Instead of relying on constant, clear shots of the shark, they leaned into the idea that sometimes less is more. The limited visibility of the mechanical shark on screen turned into a storytelling advantage, allowing suspense to build through what the audience didn't see rather than what they did. This restraint, combined with masterful cinematography, clever editing, and a haunting musical score, created a palpable sense of dread. It's a textbook case of how absence can be as terrifying as presence. Because of the mechanical shark's occasional stiffness and awkward movement, Spielberg wisely chose to keep full shots of Bruce to a minimum. Instead, the film uses clever underwater camera angles, POV shots from the shark's perspective, choppy waves, and fleeting glimpses to suggest the predator lurking beneath the surface. These techniques allow the visual effects to blend naturally with the film's world instead of drawing attention to themselves. When the shark finally does appear in close-up or in a full reveal, the moment is charged with tension and impact, precisely because it's so rare. This approach not only preserves the illusion of realism, but also engages the viewer's imagination, which often conjures horrors far more frightening than any practical effect can deliver. The charm of the practical effects lies partly in their imperfections. Bruce wasn't a flawless creature. Sometimes, the mechanical nature was noticeable, and the shark's movements could feel somewhat robotic. But rather than detracting, these imperfections added a layer of authenticity and texture. They reminded viewers that this was a tangible, physical object interacting with the environment and actors, something you can't quite replicate with purely digital effects. This tactile reality helped the actors give genuine reactions, which in turn increased the audience's immersion. The fear felt by the characters was real, because they were reacting to a physical prop, not just green screen or CGI placeholders. Another crucial aspect of how the visual effects integrate into Jaws is the masterful use of water as a natural camouflage. The ocean itself acts as both an ally and a conspirator in hiding the shark's imperfections. Murky water, rippling waves, shadows, and bubbles obscure the mechanical shark at crucial moments, enhancing the mystery and menace. The shark becomes a creature not fully visible, but always sensed, like a ghost haunting the waters. This technique elevates the shark from being just a mechanical prop to an omnipresent, almost supernatural force. It also creates a dynamic interplay between what is shown and what is hidden, constantly keeping the audience on edge. Beyond Bruce, the practical effects team employed various ingenious methods to enhance the realism of the shark attacks and underwater sequences. Fake blood that disperses through the water, strategically placed rigging to simulate thrashing or movement, and miniature models were all used to create convincing action without relying on explicit gore or digital trickery. These tactile effects engage multiple senses and add layers of texture and physicality to the scenes. For example, the sight of blood spreading in the water becomes a chilling visual cue for danger lurking beneath the waves without having to show the shark itself. This subtlety adds to the film's suspense and horror. When comparing Jaws' practical effects to modern CGI-heavy films, the contrast is stark but enlightening. Contemporary movies often boast ultra-realistic, fluid digital monsters with smooth movements and incredible detail. While these effects can be visually stunning, they sometimes lack the physical presence and grounded authenticity that practical effects provide. In Jaws, the physicality of the animatronic shark and the crew's inventive staging bring a level of rawness and immediacy that can be harder to achieve with CGI alone. The tangible presence of Bruce on set gave actors something real to respond to, resulting in performances steeped in genuine fear and tension, which audiences can feel deeply. Additionally, the constraints imposed by Bruce's limitations pushed the filmmakers to experiment creatively with camera angles, lighting, and editing rhythms. Spielberg and his team crafted a style where suspense isn't just about showing the monster, but building an atmosphere that heightens anticipation and dread. This approach makes the visual effects feel integral to the story rather than tacked on spectacle. It turns a mechanical shark from a potential weakness into a storytelling strength, proving that effective visual effects depend as much on imaginative presentation as on technical perfection. The naturalistic blending of the shark into its environment also makes the film's visual effects timeless. While the mechanical shark might look dated by today's standards when seen up close, the clever use of shadows, reflections, water movement, and partial reveals keeps the audience's suspension of disbelief intact. The film's aesthetic choices create a seamless world where the effects feel like a natural extension of the setting, rather than artificial overlays. This harmony between effects and environment contributes to the immersive experience and keeps the shark's menace believable throughout the film. In essence, Jaws stands as a masterclass in using practical visual effects not just to show a monster, but to make that monster a living, breathing presence that haunts the story. The mechanical shark's limitations became a creative catalyst that led to some of the most effective suspense-building techniques in cinema. By blending mechanical effects with clever cinematography, editing, and environmental factors like water and light, the film crafts a believable and terrifying underwater world. This synergy between technology, artistry, and storytelling ensures that the visual effects never distract but instead enhance the immersion, making Jaws a timeless example of how thoughtful practical effects can create unforgettable cinematic fear, even decades before the age of CGI dominance. When we really plunge into the set design and locations of Jaws, it becomes clear how crucial they are in anchoring the film's suspense and making the story come alive with undeniable authenticity. The world of Amity Island is crafted with such care that it transcends being just a backdrop. It practically breathes and pulses like a character of its own. The seemingly charming, quintessential New England beach town is imbued with a cozy, welcoming vibe on the surface, but underneath lies a simmering tension that mirrors the lurking menace of the great white shark beneath the waves. The production design smartly captures this duality, building a world that is simultaneously inviting and ominous, comforting and claustrophobic. What's striking from the outset is how meticulously the settings are detailed to evoke a very specific place and time, the mid-1970s coastal town, during summer vacation season. The attention to everyday details, colorful umbrellas dotting the crowded beach, the faded wooden boardwalk lined with souvenir shops and eateries, seagulls circling overhead, the sound of laughter mixed with the crashing surf, creates a texture environment that feels lived in and authentic. Every prop and piece of set dressing adds to the illusion of a real community bustling with vacationers and locals going about their daily routines. This grounded realism is essential because it sets up the stark contrast when the shark's threat disrupts this normalcy. It's a warm, familiar world being invaded by a terrifying force, and the more believable the setting, the stronger that invasion hits home emotionally. The choice of shooting on location at Martha's Vineyard adds an extra layer of visual and atmospheric authenticity that studio sets could never replicate. The island's rugged coastline, with its jagged rocks, sandy beaches, and expansive ocean horizons, provides a stunning and sometimes foreboding natural environment. The vast, untamed sea plays a key role, emphasizing nature's indifference to human affairs and enhancing the film's sense of scale and vulnerability. It's easy for viewers to imagine themselves in that setting. The salty air, the feel of sand beneath their toes, the distant sound of waves, and that sensory connection deepens immersion. The real-world locations ground the fantastic terror of a shark attack in something tangibly familiar and believable. Inside the Orca, the fishing boat that becomes a stage for the climactic battle, the production design shifts to a much more confined and intimate space. The boat's weather utilitarian look, with its peeling paint, ropes, nets, and maritime equipment, immerses the audience in the gritty reality of life at sea. The cramped quarters and narrow corridors create a palpable sense of claustrophobia and vulnerability, emphasizing just how exposed and isolated the characters are when out on the vast, open ocean. This confined setting contrasts beautifully with the openness of the shoreline and beach scenes, underscoring the shift from a safe community to a dangerous wilderness where survival is uncertain. The Orca is almost like a character itself, small and fragile, yet a desperate bastion against a lurking predator. Every prop in the film feels thoughtfully chosen and functional, not just decorative. From the sonar equipment and harpoons to simple things like binoculars and radios, these items serve as tangible extensions of the characters' attempts to combat the shark and regain control over their environment. They subtly reinforce the themes of knowledge, preparedness, and the limits of human technology against nature's raw power. The realistic use of these props adds depth to the story without overwhelming it with exposition. Instead, they create a practical, hands-on feeling that heightens the stakes and immerses the audience in the shark hunt. The film also masterfully plays with visual contrast through set design and locations to enhance emotional impact. The bright, sunlit scenes on the beach, filled with families and tourists enjoying summer leisure, radiate warmth and safety, at least initially. These moments make the impending danger feel more intrusive and shocking. In contrast, the ocean scenes are often darker and moodier, with churning water, gray skies, and deep shadows. This interplay of light and color visually signals the shift from peace to peril, and the production design supports this storytelling rhythm perfectly. Scale is another tool the film uses effectively through its settings. The immense, open ocean dwarfs the small fishing boats and swimmers, reinforcing the idea that humans are tiny and vulnerable in the face of nature's vastness. The sense of isolation becomes visceral, especially during scenes where the Orca drifts far from shore, surrounded by endless water. The production design and locations work hand in hand to convey this feeling of exposure and powerlessness, intensifying suspense and emotional stakes. Even the everyday, mundane locations like the local diner, town hall, and beachside shops are imbued with meaning. These familiar places ground the story in a relatable reality, making the shark's intrusion feel personal and immediate. The way the townspeople gather in these spaces to discuss the crisis adds a communal layer to the narrative, showing how the threat ripples through the social fabric of Amity Island. This blending of ordinary life with extraordinary danger heightens tension and connects the audience emotionally to the characters and their world. In addition, the production design cleverly uses small details to reinforce themes and character dynamics. For example, the contrast between the clean, orderly interiors of some homes and the rough, worn look of the Orca highlights different aspects of the story, civilization versus wilderness, safety versus risk. The props and sets also reflect the characters' personalities and roles. Brody's home is cozy and modest, reflecting his everyman status. Quint's gear and tattoos hint his grizzled, obsessive nature. Hooper's scientific equipment underscores his rational approach. These visual cues enrich character development subtly but powerfully. Taken together, the set design and locations in Jaws do much more than provide a realistic backdrop. They create a fully immersive world that feels tactile, believable, and emotionally charged. Every element, from the bustling beach scenes to the isolated fishing boat, works in concert to pull the audience into the story and heighten the sense of looming danger. The detailed props, authentic locations, and thoughtful design choices make Amity Island a place you can almost smell, hear, and feel, which makes the shark's threat not just scary but deeply personal. This careful world building is one of the key reasons Jaws remains a timeless classic, proving how powerful and essential great production design is to storytelling, especially in building suspense and atmosphere. The dialogue and script of Jaws are truly a masterclass in how words can do more than just tell a story. They build character, create atmosphere, and deepen emotional engagement in ways that elevate the entire film. One of the most striking things about the script is how naturally the characters speak to each other. Unlike many thrillers that rely on over-the-top speeches or exposition dumps, Jaws thrives on conversations that sound exactly like real people talking, complete with hesitations, interruptions, jokes, and moments of awkwardness. This naturalistic dialogue makes the characters feel authentic and relatable, which is essential because it grounds the supernatural terror of a man-eating shark in a believable human world. The everyday nature of the dialogue also acts as a sharp contrast to the extraordinary events unfolding, which makes the moments of tension and horror all the more impactful. For example, the lighthearted exchanges on the beach or in the town diner lull the audience into a sense of normalcy, which is then shattered by the increasing threat lurking offshore. This ebb and flow between casual banter and mounting dread keeps viewers emotionally invested and creates a rhythm that mirrors real life, where terror often intrudes upon the mundane without warning. The script cleverly uses dialogue to develop rich, layered characters who feel like more than just archetypes. Take Chief Brody, whose straightforward, sometimes understated lines reveal a man grappling with fear and responsibility. His dialogue is peppered with small moments of vulnerability and determination that build his everyman hero persona. You hear the worry in his voice, the frustration when others dismiss the danger, and the resolve when he takes action. These nuances in the writing allow audiences to connect deeply with Brody's journey. Then there's Quint, whose gravelly, no-nonsense speech is filled with colorful, often darkly humorous anecdotes. His dialogue adds a rough-edged texture to the film, painting him as a hardened, world-weary sea captain who has faced death before and isn't easily intimidated. Quint's lines bring both comic relief and chilling gravitas, most famously in his haunting USS Indianapolis monologue, which is a storytelling highlight that transcends a shark narrative to touch on real human horror and history. The vivid imagery and emotional weight of that speech linger in the mind, elevating the film from a mere monster movie to something more profound. Hooper's dialogue contrasts with both Brody and Quint by offering a more scientific, measured perspective. His technical explanations about sharks and oceanography introduce an element of rationality and modernity, grounding the threat in facts and research. But the script also allows Hooper moments of humor and personality, preventing him from becoming just a textbook expert. This balance enriches the dynamic between the trio and broadens the film's emotional and intellectual scope. The film's script is packed with memorable lines that have become iconic parts of cinematic history. "You're going to need a bigger boat" is more than just a funny quip. It encapsulates a mix of humor and rising panic that defines a movie's tone. Such lines are perfectly timed and delivered with a casualness that makes them all the more effective. They stick in the audience's memory because they feel earned, not forced, and they often carry multiple layers of meaning, from comic relief to foreshadowing. What makes the dialogue so engaging is also its role in driving the story forward, without ever feeling like it's dragging or lecturing the audience. Information about the shark, the danger it poses, and the stakes involved are woven seamlessly into conversations, rather than dumped in clunky expositional speeches. The characters' differing reactions to the threat, Brody's caution, Quint's fatalism, Hooper's curiosity, are communicated through their words and tone, adding psychological complexity to the narrative. This careful writing invites the audience to interpret and feel the tension rather than just be told about it. The pacing and rhythm of the script are essential to maintaining suspense. The dialogue often starts with small talk or everyday concerns, slowly layering in unease as characters circle around the topic of the shark. Sometimes they avoid speaking directly about the danger, creating moments of dramatic irony where the audience knows more than the characters. Other times, conversations escalate quickly into heated debates or urgent planning, mirroring the rising action of the plot. The use of silence and subtext, what's left unsaid, also plays a powerful role, filling scenes with tension that words alone couldn't capture. Another subtle strength of the script is how it uses dialogue to explore deeper themes without feeling preachy. Through their conversations, the characters grapple with fear, denial, responsibility, and survival. The push and pull between town officials wanting to protect tourism and Brody's insistence on safety reflects real-world conflicts between economics and ethics. These layers add depth and realism to the story, making it resonate on more than just a surface level. The way the script captures different voices and personalities also helps create a rich social texture. Whether it's the skeptical townspeople, the anxious families, or the rugged fishermen, everyone sounds distinct and believable. This diversity of voices brings the world of Amity Island to life, making it feel like a real community under siege rather than a generic movie setting. In summary, the dialogue and script of Jaws are a finely tuned blend of authenticity, wit, emotional depth, and memorable moments. They don't just tell the story. They build characters, create atmosphere, and heighten tension in ways that pull the audience in and hold them captive. The writing respects the intelligence of viewers, letting them experience the fear, humor, and humanity that make the film so enduring. It's a script where every line counts, every exchange reveals something new, and every memorable quote becomes part of the cultural lexicon, proving that great dialogue is one of the most powerful tools in cinematic storytelling. Jaws stands as a brilliant example of genre execution because it skillfully navigates the familiar waters of thriller and horror conventions while injecting fresh energy and innovative storytelling that elevate it beyond cliché. At first glance, it looks like a classic creature feature. A menacing great white shark terrorizes a peaceful coastal town, leading to a tense man versus nature showdown. This premise might seem straightforward, almost formulaic, but Jaws proves that even the most well-worn genre frameworks can be revitalized with clever craftsmanship and attention to detail. One of the most notable ways Jaws both follows and subverts genre expectations is in its approach to suspense. Instead of indulging in the typical show the monster right away tactic common in many horror films, Jaws opts for a masterful slow reveal. The shark isn't a constant on-screen presence. In fact, it's barely visible for a large portion of the film. This deliberate restraint flips the genre on its head, compelling the filmmakers to build tension through atmosphere, sound design, and character reactions. The audience is forced to imagine the threat lurking beneath the waves, which often conjures up fears far more potent than any graphic depiction could achieve. This approach was revolutionary for its time and remains a textbook example of how to harness the power of suggestion in suspense storytelling. When it comes to action, Jaws strikes a perfect balance that keeps viewers hooked without overwhelming them. The shark attacks are spaced out thoughtfully, ensuring each encounter feels significant and nerve-wracking. Rather than relentless action scenes, the film alternates between quieter, character-driven moments and explosive bursts of tension, creating a dynamic rhythm that mirrors the ebb and flow of fear itself. This pacing keeps the audience emotionally invested and heightens anticipation for the next encounter, making the payoff all the more satisfying. The film understands that suspense isn't just about non-stop thrills. It's about timing and emotional investment. Humor also plays a surprisingly vital role in Jaws' genre execution. The film smartly weaves in witty, sometimes sardonic dialogue and banter, particularly through characters like Quint and Hooper. This humor provides necessary breathing room, humanizing the characters and offering moments of levity that make the ensuing terror more impactful by contrast. It's a delicate balancing act. The humor never undermines the danger, but rather adds texture and personality, preventing the film from becoming one-dimensional. These lighter moments also mirror how real people might react to crisis, with sarcasm or jokes serving as coping mechanisms. This blend of humor and horror enriches the film's tone and keeps it engaging on multiple emotional levels. Drama is woven seamlessly into the story through the interactions between characters and the broader social dynamics of Amity Island. The script delves into themes of denial, responsibility, and courage, as well as the clash between economic interests and public safety. The tension between Mayor Vaughn, worried about losing tourism dollars, and Chief Brody, focused on protecting the town's residents, adds a layer of complexity that elevates the narrative beyond a simple monster chase. These conflicts are rooted in real-world concerns, lending the film a grounded, relatable dimension that resonates with audiences. The personal stakes of the characters, Brody's struggle as a father and protector, Quint's obsession with the shark, Hooper's scientific curiosity, add emotional depth that complements the external threat. Jaws also plays with genre cliches by either embracing or subverting them to keep the story fresh and unpredictable. The hero is an invincible action star but a flawed, everyman police chief who is visibly uneasy yet determined. This grounded protagonist makes the film more relatable and heightens tension because his fear feels genuine. The shark itself isn't just a mindless killing machine, but a nearly mythical force of nature, something both feared and respected. This nuanced portrayal of the monster blurs the lines between villain and natural phenomenon, deepening the thematic richness. Stylistically, the film employs classic genre techniques such as suspenseful music cues, shark-side POV shots, and claustrophobic settings, but combines these elements in ways that feel innovative and effective. The iconic two-note motif from John Williams' score is a perfect example. Simple yet unforgettable, it instantly signals danger and builds anticipation with minimal musical fuss. This motif, paired with tight editing and evocative cinematography, crafts a sensory experience that has become synonymous with lurking terror. The film's use of point-of-view shots from the shark's perspective was cutting-edge at the time, immersing audiences directly in the predator's viewpoint and amplifying the sense of menace. Beyond the technical and narrative choices, Jaws demonstrates a keen understanding of how to blend multiple genre elements, suspense, action, humor, drama, into a cohesive whole. It never feels like a patchwork of cliches, but rather a finely tuned symphony where each element supports and enhances the others. The humor lightens without undercutting. The drama deepens without slowing the pace, and the action thrills without overwhelming the story. This balance creates a rich emotional texture that appeals to a broad audience, keeping viewers both entertained and on edge. What makes Jaws especially compelling is how it respects the intelligence and emotional complexity of its audience. It doesn't spoon-feed scares or rely on cheap tricks, but instead builds dread gradually, inviting viewers to engage with the story's characters, themes, and atmosphere. The film trusts its audience to fill in the blanks, imagine the unseen, and ride the waves of tension that swell beneath the surface. This respect for viewer participation is a hallmark of great genre filmmaking. Ultimately, Jaws doesn't just follow genre conventions, it elevates and expands them. It demonstrates that thrillers and creature features don't have to be formulaic or shallow, but can offer nuanced characters, layered themes, and innovative storytelling techniques. By skillfully balancing suspense, action, humor, and drama, and by knowing when to embrace and when to subvert cliches, Jaws creates a genre experience that feels both timeless and fresh. This blend of tradition and innovation is a major reason the film remains a benchmark for thrillers and monster movies decades after its release, continuing to thrill and terrify new generations of audiences. Jaws isn't just a roller coaster of suspense and shark attacks. It's also a surprisingly rich vessel for social and cultural commentary that runs beneath its thrilling surface, adding layers of meaning and complexity to the story. What's truly impressive is how seamlessly these themes are woven into the narrative, never feeling preachy or forced, but instead naturally emerging from the characters, setting, and plot. The film uses a microcosm of Amity Island, a small coastal town grappling with an extraordinary crisis, to explore broader societal issues that resonate beyond the screen, making the story both timely and timeless. One of the clearest and most compelling threads is the tension between economic interests and public safety, a conflict that drives much of the film's dramatic tension. Mayor Vaughn and the town officials are obsessed with keeping the beaches open, fearing that closing them would devastate the summer tourist economy. Their concerns are understandable. Small towns often depend heavily on tourism for survival, but their refusal to act decisively in the face of danger highlights a harsh reality. Economic pressures can sometimes blind leaders to the welfare of their communities. This dynamic mirrors real-world scenarios where financial considerations often trump safety measures, whether in politics, business, or environmental issues. Jaws uses this conflict to comment on the sometimes cold calculus of capitalism, where short-term profits can outweigh long-term risks and human lives. Closely tied to this is the film's exploration of denial and willful ignorance. Many townspeople, vacationers, and even some officials refuse to fully accept the reality of the shark attacks. This collective blindness isn't just stubbornness. It's a coping mechanism, a desperate clinging to normalcy in the face of a terrifying unknown. The film captures the psychological complexity of how people handle crisis. Some choose to ignore the problem, others try to downplay it, and only a few, like Chief Brody, insist on confronting it head-on. This denial fuels social conflict within the town and heightens the suspense, but also serves as a commentary on human nature's tendency to avoid uncomfortable truths until forced otherwise. It's a theme that feels just as relevant today, reminding viewers how communities and individuals wrestle with inconvenient realities across different contexts, from climate change to public health. Leadership and responsibility are central themes explored through Chief Brody's character. As an outsider and relative newcomer to Amity, Brody faces resistance and skepticism, particularly from the established political powers and townsfolk who are reluctant to disrupt the status quo. His struggle to protect the town despite political pressure underscores the challenges faced by leaders who prioritize safety and ethics over popularity or profit. Brody's arc illustrates the loneliness and burden of leadership, the courage it takes to stand firm against opposition, make tough decisions, and bear the weight of responsibility. This theme is portrayed with nuance, showing both Brody's doubts and his growing resolve, which makes him a relatable and sympathetic figure. The film subtly critiques those who shy away from leadership when it's inconvenient or risky, highlighting the importance of accountability and moral courage. The dynamic between the three main characters, Brody, Quint, and Hooper, adds another layer of cultural commentary, reflecting different attitudes toward nature, science, and tradition. Quint, the grizzled fisherman, represent a rugged blue-collar toughness and a deep, often grim respect for the ocean's dangers. His worldview is shaped by experience, folklore, and a certain fatalism. Hooper, the marine biologist, embodies modern scientific inquiry and rationalism, offering a methodical, evidence-based perspective. Brody occupies a middle ground, combining practical concern with emotional investment. Through their interactions, the film explores broader societal tensions between tradition and progress, intuition and reason, fear and curiosity. This triad symbolizes the diverse ways humans interpret and respond to the natural world, illustrating both conflict and collaboration. The nuanced portrayal of these perspectives enriches the story and invites viewers to consider their own attitudes toward nature and knowledge. The film also subtly addresses humanity's fraught relationship with the environment. The shark is portrayed less as a mere villain and more as a powerful, indifferent force of nature that commands respect and awe. This ecological undercurrent reminds viewers of their own vulnerability and the limits of human control over the natural world. The narrative suggests that nature is not an adversary to be conquered, but a complex system to be understood and respected. This message resonates especially in light of contemporary environmental concerns, offering a prescient reflection on ecological balance and human impact. The shark, as an unstoppable natural predator, becomes a symbol of nature's primal forces that humanity must reckon with. What's particularly effective about Jaws' social and cultural commentary is how it integrates these themes seamlessly into the story without detracting from the suspense and entertainment. The conflict arises organically from character motivations, plot developments, and the evolving crisis, making the commentary feel like an intrinsic part of the narrative fabric. Instead of interrupting the flow with overt messages, the film invites the audience to engage with these ideas through the drama, dialogue, and character dynamics. This subtlety respects viewers' intelligence and emotional engagement, encouraging reflection without breaking immersion. The film also uses setting and community dynamics to enrich its commentary. Amity Island is depicted as a close-knit town where everyone knows each other, adding weight to the social tensions that emerge. The shark threat disrupts this sense of safety and familiarity, exposing underlying fears, prejudices, and conflict within the community. Scenes of town meetings, beach gatherings, and heated debates portray a society grappling with fear, uncertainty, and competing interests. This microcosm serves as a mirror to broader societal challenges, illustrating how communities respond under pressure, sometimes with denial and selfishness, other times with courage and solidarity. Moreover, Jaws captures the psychological and emotional complexity of crisis management. It shows how fear can paralyze some, motivate others, and deepen existing social divides. The film's portrayal of these reactions is nuanced, avoiding caricatures or simplistic judgments. Characters wrestle with personal fears, professional duties, and social pressures in ways that feel authentic and relatable. This human-centered focus elevates the narrative beyond a simple monster chase, making the shark attack a catalyst for exploring deeper questions about human behavior and society. In addition to these themes, the film subtly touches on issues of class and social status. Quint's blue collar. Tough guy persona contrasts with Hooper's educated, scientific background and Brody's middle-class law enforcement role. Their interactions reflect broader cultural conversations about expertise, experience, and social hierarchy. The film doesn't shy away from portraying these tensions with humor and realism, adding another dimension to the story's social texture. Jaws possesses a remarkable talent for emotionally hooking its audience from the very first frame and maintaining that grip through a masterful blend of suspense, character depth, and tonal shifts that keep viewers fully engaged. The film opens with a terrifying underwater attack that jolts the audience right out of complacency. This opening scene isn't just a fright for fright's sake. It's an immersive experience that plunges viewers into the shark's world, creating an immediate sense of vulnerability and dread. The visceral nature of this moment sets the emotional tone, signaling that this film will play with primal fears and deliver shocks that are both physical and psychological. What follows is a carefully constructed emotional journey where tension ebbs and flows, allowing viewers to catch their breath just enough to connect with the characters and the story. The emotional resonance is built through well-drawn, relatable characters who are much more than archetypal horror victims. Chief Brody's role as a family man with real fears and doubts grounds the story in human emotion. His anxiety about protecting his wife and children adds a personal stake to the larger threat, making viewers not just observers, but emotionally invested participants in the unfolding drama. When Brody faces moments of terror or frustration, the audience feels it alongside him, deepening the emotional impact of the narrative. Quint, with his rough demeanor and haunted past, brings another layer of emotional texture. His cynical humor and grizzled toughness make him a compelling figure, someone who has faced death and come out hardened but deeply affected. His famous monologue about the USS Indianapolis, delivered with raw intensity, is one of the film's most powerful emotional moments. It serves not just as a chilling story within the story, but as a window into Quint's psyche, revealing how trauma and experience shape his obsession with the shark. This depth invites the audience to empathize with him beyond the surface level of a tough guy, adding gravitas to the narrative. Hooper adds contrast with his scientific curiosity and optimism, injecting moments of lighter camaraderie, and with that balance the darker tones. His interactions with Brody and Quint form a dynamic trio whose chemistry offers both tension and warmth, making the film emotionally rich. The way these three characters banter, clash, and ultimately unite invites viewers to emotionally invest in their journey, rooting for their survival with genuine concern and affection. Suspense is woven into every aspect of the film, not just through the obvious shark attacks, but also via the slow-building dread and the use of sound and visual cues. The iconic John Williams score, simple yet profoundly effective, instantly signals danger with its now famous two-note motif. This musical cue taps directly into the audience's primal instincts, triggering tension and anticipation even before the shark appears. It's a brilliant example of how Jaws manipulates sensory cues to heighten emotional engagement, making viewers physically respond with quickened heartbeats and held breaths. The film's pacing plays a crucial role in sustaining emotional resonance. It carefully balances quieter, character-driven scenes with sudden, intense bursts of action, creating a rhythm that mirrors real-life experiences of fear, moments of uneasy calm punctuated by sudden terror. This ebb and flow keeps audiences emotionally on edge, never allowing the tension to dissipate completely, but giving just enough relief to deepen investment in the characters and story. Each shark attack feels earned and shocking because of the deliberate build-up, maximizing emotional payoff. Beyond fear and suspense, Jaws also sparks moments of humor and warmth that enrich the emotional palate. Quinn's sarcastic remarks, Hooper's light-hearted comments, and even Brody's awkwardness inject levity that humanizes the characters and provides contrast to the mounting danger. This humor acts as a tension release valve, making the frightening moments hit harder by comparison. It also creates emotional complexity. Viewers laugh, then gasp, then cheer, riding a roller coaster of feelings that mirror real human reactions to crisis. The film's ability to provoke strong emotional reactions extends to moments of shock and surprise that feel organic and impactful rather than cheap jump scares. Whether it's the sudden disappearance of a beloved character or the unexpected ferocity of a shark attack, these moments jolt viewers and keep the stakes high. The unpredictability intensifies emotional investment because the audience understands that no one is truly safe, creating a sense of urgency and suspense that sustains throughout. Jaws also invites reflection and discussion long after the screen goes dark. Its layered characters, social themes, and innovative storytelling provide rich material for analysis and debate. Fans often find themselves quoting iconic lines, dissecting the film's tension-building techniques, or exploring the symbolic meanings behind the shark and the town's response. This ongoing engagement speaks to the film's depth and its ability to resonate intellectually and emotionally, encouraging repeat viewings and continued appreciation. The emotional resonance of Jaws is amplified by its exploration of universal fears. Fear of the unknown, fear of nature's power, fear for loved one's safety, that connect with audiences across cultures and generations. The film taps into these primal anxieties with a skill that few movies match, making the experience deeply personal for viewers. The sense of isolation on the vast ocean, the close-knit but conflicted community on Amity Island, and the looming presence of an unstoppable predator combine to create a powerful emotional atmosphere that stays with audiences long after the final scene. At its core, Jaws masterfully blends adrenaline-fueled suspense with genuine human emotion, humor, and thematic depth. It doesn't just aim to scare. It invites the audience to feel alongside its characters, laugh with them, worry for them, and ultimately share in their triumphs and losses. This emotional richness is why the film continues to captivate new generations, offering not just thrills, but profound cinematic experience that engages the heart and mind alike. Whether it's the shock of a sudden attack, the tension of the hunt, or the warmth of character interactions, Jaws delivers an unforgettable emotional ride that makes it a true classic of storytelling. Jaws doesn't just swim alongside other shark or thriller films. It practically created a whole ocean they swim in. When it came out in 1975, it wasn't just another horror or creature feature. It rewrote the playbook on how to build suspense, craft characters, and deliver thrills in a way that felt grounded, serious, and deeply affecting. To understand how it stands against its peers, you have to look at both the films that came before it and those that followed, and how Jaws set a new standard that many tried to imitate but few matched. Before Jaws, creature features often leaned heavily on camp, cheap scares, or over-the-top monsters that were more silly than scary. Think of the rubbery beasts lurking in B-movies or the straightforward, often predictable plots. What Spielberg and his team did was transform this formula by injecting realism, character depth, and psychological suspense. The shark in Jaws is not just a monster, it's an unseen menace, a force of nature, and the film's tension comes from what you don't see as much as from what you do. This technique was revolutionary. While earlier films would often flaunt the creature immediately to shock audiences, Jaws understood that mystery breeds fear. By largely hiding the shark and using cleverly timed sound cues and visual hints, the film keeps viewers' imaginations working overtime, which often results in a scarier experience than any visual could provide. This method changed the way filmmakers approach monster movies, proving that less is often more when it comes to on-screen horror. If you compare Jaws to many later shark movies, like Deep Blue Sea, Open Water, or The Meg, you notice that many of these films tend to emphasize spectacle and non-stop action, but often at the expense of character development or genuine suspense. They can become predictable roller coaster rides filled with CGI overloads and jump scares that feel formulaic. In contrast, Jaws carefully balances moments of quiet character interaction with sudden bursts of intense action, giving audiences time to emotionally invest in the characters before the terror strikes. This emotional connection amplifies the stakes and makes the danger feel real. The characters aren't just fodder for the monster. They're people with fears, flaws, and relationships, which makes the suspense hit harder. Many later shark thrillers feel like they missed this point, turning the creatures into mere killing machines and sacrificing emotional weight for visual spectacle. Beyond just shark movies, Jaws has influenced the broader thriller and disaster film genres profoundly. Its narrative structure, the gradual buildup of danger, the reluctant heroes banding together, the escalating threat, and the climactic showdown, became a template for many blockbusters to come. Films like Jurassic Park, Twister, and even Independence Day owe a stylistic and structural debt to Jaws. Spielberg's genius lay in pacing the story so that suspense builds naturally, characters are developed thoughtfully, and the audience's emotional involvement grows alongside the tension. This approach moved blockbuster filmmaking beyond mere spectacle, adding layers of storytelling and emotional resonance that have since become industry standards. Within Spielberg's own career, Jaws is a landmark that shaped his storytelling style. Compared to his earlier, more straightforward films, Jaws showcases his ability to blend horror, adventure, and human drama in a way that appealed to a broad audience. The film's mix of suspenseful set pieces, sharp character dynamics, and well-timed humor became hallmarks of Spielberg's later work. Watching Jaws alongside later films like E.T., Jurassic Park, or Saving Private Ryan reveals consistent thread. Spielberg's knack for mixing thrills with emotional depth and storytelling finesse. Jaws is a film where many of these talents came together most effectively for the first time, setting the stage for his legendary career. Stylistically, Jaws also stands out among thrillers and monster movies of its era. While some contemporaries embraced either the fantastical or the grotesque, Jaws kept its terror grounded in a believable setting. A small beach town with relatable characters and practical effects. The use of a mechanical shark, despite its production challenges, and the clever cinematography that hid the creature much of the time, lent the film an authenticity that made the suspense feel tangible. This practical approach contrasts with many later films that rely heavily on digital effects, which can sometimes feel less immersive or emotionally engaging. The grit and realism of Jaws give it a texture that still feels fresh, even decades later. Tone and pacing also distinguish Jaws from many similar films. Instead of relentless tension or gore, the movie smartly mixes suspenseful silence, character-driven humor, and sudden scares. The banter between Brody, Quint, and Hooper offers levity and humanity, preventing the film from becoming monotonous or exhausting. This tonal variety makes the experience richer and more engaging. Many other films in the genre tend to lean heavily into either scares or camp, missing the chance to develop a layered emotional experience. What's also fascinating is how Jaws manages to remain timeless, while many of its imitators feel dated. The fears it taps into, fear of the unknown, nature's power, vulnerability in the face of a relentless predator, are universal and eternal. Its focus on character, tension, and atmosphere rather than cheap tricks or over-the-top effects gives it staying power. New viewers today can still feel the suspense and emotional punch, whereas many other films from the same genre and era don't hold up as well. In short, Jaws is the original great white of the thriller ocean, setting a high bar for everything that followed. It took a familiar formula, a monster terrorizing community, and turned into a deeply human story filled with suspense, character, and thematic richness. Later films either try to replicate its success, add their own spin, or fall short in comparison. Within Spielberg's filmography, it marks the moment where he mastered the blockbuster formula that would carry him to legendary status. The influence of Jaws could be seen not only in shark movies, but across the entire thriller and adventure landscape. Its pioneering techniques and storytelling choices continue to resonate, proving that sometimes the biggest waves come from the earliest ripples. Jaws is far more than just a thrilling shark attack movie. It's a treasure trove of symbolism and metaphor that flows beneath its surface, giving the story rich layers of meaning that deepen the experience for viewers willing to dive a little deeper. These symbolic elements enhance the film's themes and storytelling by adding texture and complexity, inviting audiences to look beyond the immediate scares and uncover a broader commentary on human nature, society, and the unknown. The shark itself is undoubtedly the film's most potent symbol. It embodies an unstoppable, indifferent force of nature, ancient, primal, and relentless. Unlike a typical villain driven by malice or motive, the shark is amoral, a creature simply fulfilling its role in the ecosystem. This absence of evil intent transforms it into a metaphor for the uncontrollable aspects of the natural world that humans must reckon with. It represents fear of the unknown, nature's unpredictable power, and the fragility of human safety and control. The shark's silent, lurking presence beneath calm waters reminds us that danger can be hidden just out of sight, lurking beneath seemingly peaceful exteriors. This metaphor extends beyond nature to symbolize any hidden threat, whether societal, psychological, or existential, that disrupts the illusion of normalcy. Amity Island, the small beach town where the story unfolds, serves as a symbolic microcosm of human society. It represents idyllic normal life, economic dependency on tourism, and a community built on routines and optimism. The arrival of the shark shatters this fragile bubble, exposing underlying tensions, fears, and human flaws. The island's sunny beaches and bustling boardwalks contrast sharply with the dark, mysterious ocean, reinforcing the theme of hidden dangers beneath pleasant surfaces. Amity Island becomes a metaphor for societies that ignore or deny looming threats in favor of comfort and economic gain, setting up a conflict between survival instincts and social or political pressures. Water and the ocean are recurring motifs throughout Jaws, rich with symbolic meaning. The ocean is both life-giving and life-threatening, providing livelihood and recreation, yet harboring deadly risks. This duality makes water a powerful metaphor for nature's ambivalence, beautiful and essential, but vast, unknowable, and sometimes cruel. The endless horizon of the sea visually represents the limits of human knowledge and control, evoking feelings of awe, insignificance, and vulnerability. The ocean also symbolizes the unconscious mind, a deep, mysterious realm where repressed fears and anxieties reside. Scenes that show underwater perspectives or the dark depths tap into this metaphor, as the shark can be seen as a physical manifestation of those hidden fears rising to the surface. The main characters themselves carry symbolic weight, each representing different human responses to fear and crisis. Chief Brody is a cautious everyman, reluctant, fearful, but determined to protect his family and community. He symbolizes responsibility, order, and the struggle to confront danger despite personal doubts. Quint, the grizzled shark hunter, embodies obsession, trauma, and respect for nature's power. His haunted demeanor and famous USS Indianapolis monologue reveal a man shaped by past horrors, consumed by the need for vengeance or closure. Hooper, the marine biologist, represents reason, science, and the quest to understand and control nature through knowledge. The tension and eventual cooperation among these three highlight the symbolic interplay between fear, experience, and intellect when facing an overwhelming threat. Interestingly, the shark itself, nicknamed Bruce on set, was often unreliable as a mechanical prop, which forced Spielberg to rely heavily on suggestion and implication rather than direct visual impact. This limitation became a blessing in disguise, deepening the shark's symbolic power. Because a monster is rarely fully seen, it becomes an abstract embodiment of fear. What is not seen or understood often feels more terrifying than what is clearly visible. This technique makes the shark a metaphor for unseen anxieties, lurking threats, and the power of the imagination to amplify danger. The film also uses recurring visual and auditory cues to reinforce symbolism. The iconic two-note musical motif composed by John Williams signals the shark's approach and acts as a sonic symbol for impending doom. This simple but effective cue taps into primal human fears and anticipation. Underwater shots from the shark's perspective, often framed by murky water or sunlight filtering through the surface, visually symbolize the lurking danger beneath everyday life. The contrast between bright, cheerful beach scenes and dark, claustrophobic underwater sequences underscores the duality of safety and threat, known and unknown. Beyond natural metaphors, Jaws contains a subtle social and political commentary. The mayor and town officials' refusal to close the beaches despite the danger can be interpreted as a critique of denial, bureaucracy, and economic priorities overshadowing public safety. This aspect symbolizes a human tendency to ignore inconvenient truths or postpone difficult decisions for short-term gain. It reflects real-world scenarios where leadership fails to act decisively in crises, prioritizing appearances and profits over lives. The shark attacks disrupt this complacency, forcing the community and the audience to confront the consequences of denial and fear. On a psychological level, Water can be read as a metaphor for the subconscious mind, with the shark representing repressed fears, trauma, or collective anxieties emerging from the depths. Quint's personal backstory about the USS Indianapolis, a devastating naval disaster he survived, connects the shark hunt to a deeper journey of confronting personal demons and past horrors. The ocean and shark become symbolic battlegrounds for grappling with trauma, loss, and mortality. The climactic showdown on the boat, the Orca, is rich with symbolism as well. This confined space surrounded by endless water represents humanity's fragile hold on safety amid the vast, unknowable forces of nature. The final battle with the shark is not just a physical fight, but a metaphor for humanity's struggle against fate, fear, and death. When the shark explodes, it symbolizes a temporary victory over chaos, yet the vast ocean reminds viewers that danger remains ever-present, lurking just out of sight. Taken together, these layers of symbolism and metaphor enrich Jaws beyond a simple monster thriller. The film becomes a meditation on humanity's relationship with nature, the power and limits of control, the dynamics of fear and denial, and enduring mystery beneath everyday life surface. This depth invites viewers to return to the film again and again, discovering new meanings beneath its surface thrills. It's this interplay of thrilling storytelling and resonant symbolic currents that helps Jaws endure as a cinematic classic that continues to engage and provoke thought long after the final credits roll. Jaws isn't just a classic film. It's a monumental milestone in cinema history that changed the way movies were made, marketed, and consumed, setting the stage for the blockbuster era that dominates Hollywood today. Although it began as a standalone story based on Peter Benchley's 1974 novel, Jaws quickly evolved into a cultural phenomenon that spawned a franchise, reshaped industry practices, and left an indelible mark on pop culture. To truly appreciate its franchise and historical context, we have to dive deep into how this movie's release and success revolutionized filmmaking and the entertainment business. When Jaws premiered in 1975, it arrived at a time when Hollywood was transitioning away from a new Hollywood era's focus on director-driven, often experimental films toward big-budget spectacles with mass appeal. The film's immense popularity didn't just come from the story of a killer shark. It came from a perfect storm of innovation, timing, and storytelling mastery that created an experience unlike anything audiences had seen before. The movie's director, Steven Spielberg, was just 28 years old, yet he managed to craft a taut, suspenseful thriller that combined sharp character work, groundbreaking technical achievements, and unforgettable music to grab viewers by the throat and refuse to let go. What makes Jaws especially important in the historical context is how it redefined the distribution and marketing of movies. Prior to Jaws, films typically opened regionally, gradually expanding to more theaters over weeks or months, a slow-build success. Jaws flipped this model by opening simultaneously in hundreds of theaters across the country, supported by an unprecedented nationwide marketing campaign that included TV spots, newspaper ads, and promotional tie-ins. This wide-release strategy was a gamble at the time, but proved wildly successful, transforming the way studios approached film releases. The concept of the summer blockbuster, now a cornerstone of Hollywood scheduling, was born with Jaws, fundamentally changing the business model to focus on massive opening weekends and event-style viewing. The franchise that followed Jaws was somewhat of an afterthought, born out of the original's huge success. While the first film stands as a tightly constructed masterpiece, the sequels, Jaws 2 1978, Jaws 3D 1983, and Jaws, The Revenge 1987, received mixed and negative critical reception and never matched the artistic or commercial impact of the original. These sequels leaned heavily on spectacle, gimmicks, and escalating threats, but often lost the character-driven tension and suspenseful storytelling that made the first film so effective. Despite this, they contributed to the Jaws legacy by keeping the shark mythos alive in popular culture for over a decade and inspiring future filmmakers to explore similar creature feature themes. Beyond the sequels, Jaws influenced an entire genre of films. Shark movies, creature features, and thrillers that pitted humans against nature's most terrifying predators. Countless movies, from Deep Blue Sea to Meg, trace their DNA back to the blueprint laid down by Jaws in terms of pacing, suspense building, and character archetypes. The movie's impact extended beyond horror and thriller genres too, influencing adventure films and disaster movies with its narrative structure of escalating tension leading to a final showdown. From a historical perspective, Jaws was inspired by real-life shark attacks, particularly the infamous 1916 Jersey Shore incidents that terrified the public and influenced shark folklore. Peter Benchley's novel and Spielberg's adaptation tapped into these fears, grounding the fictional story in real-world events that heightened its believability and impact. The setting of Amity Island, an idyllic, small coastal town disrupted by a predatory force, mirrors many real community struggles when faced with natural disasters or unexpected threats. This connection to reality helped audiences relate to the story, making the terror feel immediate rather than distant fantasy. Technologically and artistically, Jaws was groundbreaking. The film faced serious production challenges, most famously with the mechanical shark Bruce, which frequently malfunctioned. This forced Spielberg and his team to innovate, relying on clever editing, camera angles, and John Williams' iconic musical score to suggest the shark's presence rather than show it outright. This approach not only overcame practical obstacles, but also elevated the film's suspense to new heights. The techniques pioneered here have influenced countless films, proving that what's left to the imagination can be far scarier than what's explicitly shown. Within Steven Spielberg's own career, Jaws marks the moment when he emerged as a master filmmaker who could balance artistic vision with blockbuster appeal. The film set a precedent for how Spielberg would handle tension, character development, and spectacle in future hits like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and Jurassic Park. It also showed studios the financial potential of younger, visionary directors, changing the power dynamics in Hollywood. The cultural impact of Jaws can't be overstated. It triggered a shark craze that permeated media, spawned merchandise, and even affected public perception of sharks. Some might say too much, leading to fear and misunderstanding of these creatures. The movie's influence extends into parodies, homages, and references in countless films and TV shows, making the Dun-Dun musical cue and the image of the great white shark part of global pop culture vocabulary. In summary, Jaws sits at a crossroads of cinematic innovation, franchise birth, and cultural transformation. It was a film that launched the summer blockbuster tradition, redefined marketing and distribution strategies, and established a franchise that, while imperfect in its sequels, left an enduring legacy. It balanced gripping storytelling with real-world inspirations, technical ingenuity, and a director's emerging genius. This historical context and franchise impact make Jaws not just a thrilling film about a shark, but a landmark event that reshaped how movies are made, sold, and remembered. The financial journey of Jaws is a fascinating story of how smart budgeting, creative problem-solving, and revolutionary marketing transformed a modest investment into a colossal box office triumph that reshaped the film industry. When the production kicked off, the movie was allocated a budget of approximately $7 million, which in 1975 was considered a significant sum for a thriller. While not extravagant compared to today's blockbuster figures, this budget was carefully managed, especially given the film's ambitious technical demands, most notably the mechanical shark, which was essential to bringing the story's terrifying antagonist to life. Despite the solid budget, Jaws faced numerous production challenges that tested the limits of that $7 million. The mechanical shark, nicknamed Bruce by the crew, proved to be a persistent headache. It was prone to frequent malfunctions and breakdowns, leading to costly delays and forcing the filmmakers to rethink how to portray the shark on screen. This unexpected hurdle could have inflated the budget or derailed the production entirely. However, Spielberg's ingenious decision to limit the shark's screen time and instead build suspense through clever camera work, John Williams' iconic two-note score, and meticulous editing helped maintain production quality without breaking the bank. This approach not only saved money but also made the suspense more effective, proving that sometimes what you don't see can be far scarier than what you do. Once filming wrapped and the movie was ready for audiences, the financial story truly took off with Universal Pictures' groundbreaking marketing strategy. Unlike traditional film releases of the time, which opened slowly and regionally, Jaws launched in a wide release across hundreds of theaters simultaneously. Universal supported this with a massive promotional blitz, including television commercials, newspaper ads, and tie-in merchandise, creating an unprecedented level of awareness and anticipation. This was a bold move, considered risky at the time, but it capitalized on the film's universal appeal and the growing appetite for event cinema. The result was that Jaws became a must-see spectacle from day one. The opening weekend was a clear indicator of the film's potential to become a blockbuster. Jaws grossed roughly $7 million just in its first weekend alone, already matching its entire production budget. But instead of tapering off, audience enthusiasm and strong word-of-mouth kept ticket sales surging. People were captivated by the movie's tense storytelling, unforgettable musical cues, and the thrilling mystery of the great white shark. Repeat viewings became common, as fans wanted to experience the suspense again or bring friends and family. This created a powerful cycle that sustained box office momentum for months. By the time Jaws left theaters, it had amassed an astonishing worldwide gross of over $470 million, making it the highest-grossing film ever at the time, until it was overtaken by Star Wars 2 years later. This financial success was unprecedented, especially for a film with such a comparatively modest budget and no reliance on established franchises or special effect extravaganzas. It proved that smart filmmaking combined with savvy marketing could dominate the box office and capture public imagination on a massive scale. Moreover, the financial triumph of Jaws fundamentally altered the way Hollywood approached film production and release strategies. Studios began to recognize the power of wide releases, blockbuster event marketing, and the importance of timing, especially during the summer months when audiences are eager for entertainment. The film's success gave rise to the summer blockbuster season, which remains a cornerstone of the film industry's calendar today. In addition to the domestic U.S. success, Jaws performed well internationally, further boosting its box office totals. The universality of its themes, man versus nature, fear of the unknown, crossed cultural boundaries, making a global sensation. This helped pave the way for Hollywood films to target worldwide markets with bigger release strategies and marketing budgets. Interestingly, the film's financial achievements also set the stage for the eventual Jaws franchise, as studios sought to capitalize on the shark mania that Jaws inspired. While the sequels never reached the same heights of critical or commercial success, the original film's profitability demonstrated how a single successful movie could spawn multiple follow-ups, merchandising opportunities, and lasting brand recognition. In retrospect, the story of Jaws' budget and box office is not just about dollars and cents. It's a tale of how creative problem-solving under financial constraints, combined with revolutionary marketing and audience connection, created a cultural phenomenon. The movie's ability to turn a $7 million investment into nearly $500 million worldwide stands as a testament to the power of storytelling, innovation, and timing. It remains a shining example in film history of how to make a high-quality, financially successful film that thrills audiences and changes the industry forever. If you're ready to plunge into the thrilling waters of Jaws, you'll be happy to know that this iconic film is widely accessible across a variety of platforms, making it easy for audiences everywhere to experience the suspense and excitement that has captivated viewers for decades. Whether you're a modern-day streamer, a digital collector, or a lover of classic cinema on physical media, there's a way to watch Jaws that will suit your style. And if you set up right, deliver the full intensity and thrill the movie is famous for. First off, streaming services are one of the most convenient ways to catch Jaws today. Popular platforms like Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, Peacock, and occasionally Netflix or HBO Max often feature Jaws as part of their rotating catalogs. Since streaming availability depends on licensing agreements that change over time, it's a good idea to check these services regularly. Streaming allows you to watch instantly on your smart TV, laptop, or even mobile device, perfect for cozy movie nights or spontaneous thriller cravings. With streaming, you can pause, rewind, or watch scenes multiple times, which is great if you want to savor John Williams' iconic music cues or study Spielberg's masterful direction up close. If you want to take the experience a step further, digital rental and purchase options give you a lot of flexibility with quality and convenience. Platforms like Apple iTunes, Google Play Movies, YouTube Movies, and Vudu offer Jaws in HD, and often in 4K Ultra HD resolution with enhanced audio. Renting the film digitally is a budget-friendly way to enjoy the movie on big screens, such as your home TV, while owning it outright allows you to build a digital library for endless re-watching, perfect for those times when you feel like sinking back into the suspenseful world of Amity Island. The crisp image quality on these platforms often reveals new details and textures, making the underwater scenes and shark attacks even more gripping. For traditionalists and collectors, physical media remains a fantastic way to experience Jaws in top-notch quality. The film has been released multiple times on DVD and Blu-ray, with many editions featuring remastered picture and sound quality, restoring the original theatrical feel, but with modern clarity. Some Blu-ray editions also include rich bonus materials. Think behind-the-scenes documentaries, interviews with Steven Spielberg and cast members, deleted scenes, and commentary tracks that add fascinating insights into making of this legendary thriller. Watching Jaws on Blu-ray, especially with a good surround sound system, can transform your living room into a mini theater where the suspense builds organically and the chilling shark-themed thunders through the speakers, creating an immersive atmosphere that streaming sometimes can't fully replicate. Now, if you really want to experience Jaws as it was meant to be seen, keep an eye out for special theatrical screenings. From time to time, cinemas host anniversary events, classic film nights, or revival showings where Jaws is projected on the big screen. Seeing Jaws in a theater setting is a unique and unforgettable experience. The enormous screen size and powerful sound system amplify every splash, suspenseful pause, and musical cue. It's an opportunity to share the film's thrills with a crowd, capturing the communal excitement and tension that moviegoers felt back in 1975. If you have the chance to catch Jaws on the big screen, it's highly recommended to seize it. There's simply no substitute for that raw, visceral cinematic impact. To get the fullest impact watching Jaws at home, consider creating a focused, distraction-free environment. Dim the lights or watch in a dark room. Use headphones or a quality sound system, and settle in without interruptions. The power of the film's pacing, the subtle buildup of tension, and John Williams' famously minimal but spine-tingling score all work best when you're fully absorbed. This setup allows you to really feel the rising dread as the unseen shark stalks beneath the water, making those iconic scenes resonate deeply and keep you on the edge of your seat. In summary, whether you prefer the convenience of streaming, the clarity and extras of physical media, the flexibility of digital rental or purchase, or the grandeur of theatrical showings, Jaws is accessible and ready to thrill new generations of viewers. Each method offers its own benefits, but all provide a gateway into one of the most suspenseful, well-crafted, and culturally significant films ever made. Whichever way you choose to watch, prepare yourself for the tension, the music, and the lurking menace of the great white shark that forever changed the face of cinema.